Huh, well that's weird. I've been on a steady decline in views and subscribers for a while now. My last video got cut short because I lost some files, and I still haven't uploaded this month. What can I make on short notice to get a lot of views? Fuck it, I'm a sellout at heart. You guys want cartoon drama bullshit? I will kick this hornet's nest again just for you. In my previous video, I managed to catch a lot of flack from some other channels for my thoughts, and I took some pointed shots at many specific people. This time around, I'm gonna do things a little differently. I really took a shit on fans of Dragon Ball for how they approach and discuss the series last time. This time, I'm shitting on how incessantly fucking whiny they can be about some of the shit that they supposedly like so much. If I'm coming back for a part 2, it's gotta be some really incendiary shit. So instead of keeping my focus solely on the audience of an outdated archaic story, why not talk about the outdated archaic story? Dragon Ball fans are ever impossible to please. If Super's anime and manga discussions are anything to go by, this is immediately apparent. You'd think Super was a bucket of wet dog shit against a bronze statue when people compare the two. But honestly, Super is pretty fucking close to DBZ in terms of storytelling quality.
Shut the fuck up!
Yep, that's right. They're really not all that different. Does that make Super really good? No. It's something I'll still watch and enjoy, but it's definitely not any better than any other modern day shonen. And you know what? Neither is Dragon Ball Z. It's amazing to me that to this day, there are entire communities solely focused around the extremely simplistic writing that Toriyama managed to create. Here's what I can't wrap my head around. With as many YouTube channels dedicated to talking only about this one specific series, you'd think it would have plenty to talk about or theorize around. But is there? No, not at all. Past the Namek Saga, world building in the DBZ universe is paper thin. It's incredible that for a story that spans the entire galaxy, and now universes, that it feels so incredibly empty and devoid of anything intriguing. Let me put it in a way that's easier to understand. You know those series where you can tell the author clearly has some vast spanning plan where there's some seeds planted throughout the story and it's building up to something big? Or that they leave small mysteries that aren't relevant for a very long time in the story, but eventually, they come back around. Yeah, Dragon Ball doesn't do that. It very much works on an arc-by-arc basis. It's a series that has absolutely zero foresight for a long-term story. Toriyama himself pretty much indicates that he makes shit up along as he goes, and it bleeds through his work completely. If something like One Piece is looking far ahead with its writing, then Z and Super are looking straight down for what's right in front of them. Let me explain. In the Saiyan and Namek sagas, things had clearly been building up for a long time to the Goku-Frieza conflict. There's A, B, and C plots with Frieza, the Dragon Balls, a Maverick Vegeta, Goku, and a couple other minor characters. There's a push and pull with the direction the story is going constantly. This is actually a pretty engaging story. On the other hand, you have the Cell Saga, which is an absolute fucking mess. You have new villains upon new villains upon new villains. When Cell is finally established to be the antagonist, it's incredibly clear that the story has to rush to find a way to establish a new purpose for these previous antagonists, which completely drops the ball with 17 and 18 by the end. 17 sort of just fucks off and 18 becomes a wife and does nothing from then onward. And Vegeta's character development also throughout this arc seems to be entirely eradicated by the start of the next. He even says near the end of this specific arc that he will never fight again. I shall never fight again. Instead of learning anything from meeting his son or following through on those words, he does a complete 180 so that he can still be a part of the story going forward. Characters are what drives this series. I still watch and read Super because I like the characters so damn much. The worst part of this is that it may also be the worst fault of it too. When a new character is introduced, they usually seem really awesome and interesting. And you know what? This series often lives up to that. Again, only in its current arc. Take a look at Hit. When he was introduced, he was a sleek, time-stopping hitman that forced Goku to his limit. Every arc going forward, though, you can pretty much just ignore him and write him off as being entirely irrelevant just because he's not strong. But we'll get more to that part later on. Fans are always clamoring for their favorite characters to get their time to shine again. Piccolo, Tien, Krillin, and yes, even Yamcha. But unfortunately, the further the series gets along, the less relevant any other given character gets to be. Hell, starting at the beginning of the Saiyan Saga, Tien and Yamcha are already permanently relegated to being punching bags from then onward. Piccolo, after his fight with 17 in the Cell Saga, manages to do absolutely fucking nothing from then onwards. Even Gohan in the Buu Saga is built up only to be kicked aside so that Goku can do his thing again. It didn't surprise me in the slightest when the Tournament of Power was airing originally that you'd see 5 billion videos talking about how Piccolo is gonna get some new Super Namekian form, or Tien is gonna come back and finally be relevant. But as expected, nothing happened. And people were rightfully pissed when it didn't. People want these things to happen because at one point in time, Tien was the current hit of the story. Piccolo was the current cool, tough-as-nails Namekian. But because the series has zero foresight for how it's going to utilize its massive cast moving onward, it only manages to further disappoint its fans by turning them into useless, irrelevant punching bags, as I said. By keeping its eyes myopically on Goku and Vegeta, and if we're lucky, Gohan, the rest of the cast people love gets completely kicked to the curb. And if they do manage to somehow finally get a cool scene, you can bet your sweet ass the dumb fucks that upload 10 videos a week on which Marvel heroes Saitama could break in half with his rock-hard cock will scream and cry about how they've ruined the series irreparably because the power scaling is just so out of whack. This is gonna be tough to say because of the enjoyment I've had over the years from DBZ, but I need to say it here. For a series where the fighting is 80% of why people watch it, the fighting itself is a fucking bore compared to any Jump series released after the year 2000. And that 80% that I mentioned is really important. The action is the main drive for why people like it, but it's aged so poorly. Even if you hate Naruto or think it's boring, you'd be lying to yourself to say there isn't more variety in the techniques in one of its fights compared to a single saga from Dragon Ball Z. In Naruto, you have all these different jutsu that do different things and they can match up against different people. In DBZ, characters visually punch and kick identically to one another, and there's little to no sense of unique style between the characters. The only difference between characters is who's winning and who's losing. Other than that, it's pretty goddamn bland. Just different colored and shaped beams and energy blasts, except the beams are stronger when somebody transforms. Physical techniques pretty much have nothing to offer outside of being well drawn or animated. They all pretty much just look the same. You can probably nitpick a few outlying examples, I guess, but very broadly, this is undeniably the case. To make matters worse, fighting is the only way a character seems to matter within Z and Super. Modern series have managed to find ways to keep characters relevant by creating more antagonists for them to clash with, or for characters to have other purposes and roles in the story that don't center around bouts. Bulma is likely the only character who can consistently fill this role. Becoming a fan of a new character you know is going to be thrown in the garbage is like getting into a relationship where you're 100% certain you're gonna break up with this person. So, to reiterate, a story that only introduces elements into itself only when they are immediately relevant. Characters that are made out to be interesting for 5 minutes and then tossed aside after people have only just grown to enjoy them. Fight scenes with extremely little variety. In the same way you can't get blood from a stone, you can't find much to keep talking about for years and years, every single day from a story with so little to explore. For as much flack as everybody manages to give Super, the vast majority of its problems are also shared with Z. A refusal to evolve to the modern day writing standard that every other manga has managed to adapt to has left it limping behind, stuck with the exact same issues it had before. So, you'd probably take away from this that I must really strongly dislike everything Dragon Ball, right? As it might surprise you, no, I still find it to be enjoyable, schlocky entertainment. I have a different problem entirely to talk about here today. My second problem is the community. It can't seem to let go of this nostalgia for the quality of Z and accept the core problems that Dragon Ball has always had and will always have. The constant need to shit talk one and praise the other while fundamentally very little has changed between them is just inane. Whether it's blaming Toyotaro, Toei Animation, Toriyama's laziness, No random dipshit YouTuber has any real clue or insight on who to pin these problems on. Z is better than Super, sure, I'll concede that. But it's certainly not enough to gain the ire of its most outspoken critics, nor is it for the reasons they'll often try to will into popular belief. Okay, I made this video in a single day, so it's probably not very organized, but to this point, if I can upload a video before the month is over, I'll be a happy man. And speaking of, if you'd like to support me so I can upload more often, or even vote and dictate on what the next video will be that I make, you can subscribe to me on my Patreon. We've got plenty of rewards for each tier, but any of them will let you vote on what you guys would like to see next, and you can get a link down to that in the description. Okay, thanks guys.